Good morning, YouTube. Warbles on a lot here. Outsiders are about, first Moondog's about to commence.
Q&A. We cross now live to the Ultimo studios of the ABC. Good evening and welcome to Q&A. I'm First Dog on the Moon. Tonight's show is coming to you live from the reinforced lead-lined concrete basement of the First Dog on the Moon Institute. As part of the ABC's internal review of its editorial processes, Q&A has been outsourced to us here at the Institute. We'd like to thank Tony Jones for his years at the helm of Q&A. However, while it wasn't his fault, there has been a serious betrayal of Australia. It turns out the ABC is on the wrong side. As Zaki Marla might say, heads should roll. Oh, no, wait, it was the Prime Minister who said that. So, please welcome tonight's guests on our especially bipartisan government party room approved panel, arriving now from Wahroonga on a shuttle bus chartered at considerable expense. On the panel tonight, Education Minister Christopher Pyne, Minister for Defence Kevin Andrews, Minister for Kevin Andrews George Brandis, and for added balance, this delicious plate of scones. So, to our first question, which is from Ariadne Pilkington. I have a question, and my question is that this government is doing a really good job. Yes. Yeah, well, I think we'll take that as a comment. Our next question is a video question from Bernard Flume. I have a question, and my question is that this government is doing a really, really, really good job. And your thoughts on that, Kevin Andrews? Christopher Pyne? Yes, of course, Minister. And plate of scones. I'm having a lovely time, thank you, Mr. On the Moon. George Brandis?
Well, I think that the ABC has behaved disgracefully. As far back as 2003, this Zaki Mallah was appearing in the pages of the ABC's own national broadsheet, The Australian. He may have even been paid money when he appeared in the ABC's Daily Telegraph newspaper and on a current affair, which I believe is on the ABC's Channel 9. And of course, every single ABC newspaper in the country had him either on the front page or with double-page spreads this week. The ABC has a lot to answer for, giving this fellow so much attention when it is clearly all he wants.
Thank you, Senator Brandis. And we have time for one final question from Barry Cruscott. I have a question, and my question is that this government is really, 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 really good. You want to come in on that one, Kevin Andrews? Christopher Pyne? And a final word from you, plate of scones. Allahu Akbar. God is great. And that's all we've got time for. This hasn't been Q&A, proudly brought to you by the First Dog on the Moon Institute.
Well, yeah. What do you think about that, eh? I would have to say, fuck Team Australia. That's what I have to say. Tony Abbott was elected as Prime Minister of the country. He was not elected captain of the Australian cricket team. He was not elected captain of the Australian football team, basketball team, soccer team, netball team, tiddlywinks team, or any other bloody team. Fuck Team Australia. The fact that I was born in Australia, I've lived all my life in Australia, but I've never had an Australian passport because I've never had any desire to leave Australia, means that I am an Australian. I have kangaroos come and visit me in the mornings and to have their wounds treated. If I'm not Australian, then fucking nobody's an Australian. And Tony Abbott does not get to tell me what I have to think, or that I have to support him when he decides that he wants to get involved in a war on the other side of the world. The ABC does not have to support Tony Abbott or Tony Abbott's government. The ABC has to report on what's fucking happened and what people think about it. And in a democracy where people have freedom of speech, if somebody disagrees with the government position, they are permitted to speak about it in public and to be argued with, dissented with, debated with, rebutted, told that they're full of shit, if that's what they are, if that's what you think they are. They are not to be muzzled. They're not to be censored. They're not to be gagged. They're not to be told, oh, well, you know, whose side are you on? Are you on Team Australia's side, or you're on some other bloody side? No, that's not Australian. It might be how they do things at St Ignatius Riverview when they're trying to win a football game, when they're working up to becoming a half-trained Jesuit priestling who now wants to disobey and disagree with the Pope on matters of climate change and global warming. A Catholic who can't abide by the Irish Catholic population's referendum where they decided that they'd like to let gays get married. A Catholic Jesuit priestling primate or priestling half ordained who can't cope with the idea that the American Supreme Court has said that it's undignified not to let gays get married. Poor old Tony Abbott's chickens are coming home and they've grown up to be emus and they're going to kick his foul house down. Everything that he believes in is coming unglued. And I don't know what his final downform will be, what form it'll take, but it's something I'm looking forward to rolling on the floor laughing about when it occurs. His latest idea, the geographically challenged team leader of Abbottania, is that when somebody walks around the beach in Tunisia and shoots a whole bunch of English and French and German tourists, that means that ISIL is coming gunning after you. Wherever you sit in your corner of Australia, ISIL is after you because they shot some people in Tunisia. Somebody set off a bomb in Kuwait and killed 20 or 40 people. Somebody tried to set off a big levy with a couple of little levies at a gasworks in France, and on the way in there, they cut somebody's head off. All that means that here, 10,000, 8,000, however many thousand miles away, ISIL is coming chasing you, according to the captain of Team Abbottania. The bloke who doesn't believe in courts. Why would you need to have a court? Why would you have to get evidence and present it in court and charge anybody and convict them before taking action to punish them? All we need is a ministerial suspicion. I mean, fuck. Courts are just so tedious. I mean, Tony Abbott's got a law degree, and his theory is that courts will find a technical loophole to let people off. So he doesn't believe that anybody who's ever been found innocent by a court was actually innocent, because he takes the Japanese view that if the police have charged you, then you are automatically guilty. That's why Japan has a 99% conviction rate, because the court in Japan is a fucking big rubber stamp for the police prosecutor. That's what Tony Abbott wants here. And he doesn't want a police prosecutor because they might know too much about the law and the conventions and the traditions of the democratic society that they're sworn to uphold and represent and defend. So, what was actually said on Q&A in among the 6 minutes of edited cuts between other people talking, somebody who was found innocent. He was acquitted of terrorism, and that led all the news broadcasts as if being acquitted of terrorism means that you are guilty of being un-Australian. A man who was acquitted of terrorism charges, but he did plead guilty to threatening to kill an ASIO agent. Fuck, he should have threatened to kill a fishing inspector. I mean, people have been doing that in Australia for centuries. Definitely for a century. People who want to go out and catch a few fish in the middle of the night, find some arsehole with a torch and a badge, and that bloke never goes home. He finishes up feeding the fish in the bottom of a crab pot. 37 different crab pots. No, he threatened to kill an ASIO agent. Therefore, thus and because, he's not allowed to have his say on the Australian Broadcasting Commission's question and answer session. He's not allowed to ask the minister because they only want selected Dorothy Dix questions. They're not interested in anybody expressing their point of view. And what that fella actually said is precisely what I have been warning of for the last 2 years, 4 years, however long I've been on YouTube talking about Australian politics. The way to generate violently rebellious, alienated, self-militarised, angry people is to demonise them. To tell them that it doesn't matter what they think or they say, it's who they are that gives us a problem with them. Labelling them as subhumans, un-Australians, Untermensch, Judenrat. Apparently, it's not enough to repress the Aborigines and try and wind back all the provisions of the Mabo Decision and Land Rights Act without actually changing the title of the Act. Change the definition of what a sacred site is so that if it doesn't look like the Chartres Cathedral, therefore it's not a sacred site because a white man can't understand why that would be an important place. No, we've got to demonise Muslims as well because there's, according to Tony Abbott's political game theory, there's not actually enough of them to cause any real serious strife. But see, Tony Abbott, being a lawyer and a politician, he doesn't understand that you can't run a petrochemical-powered society without every individual having ready access to the materials with which to create havoc and destruction. He just doesn't get that. Maybe he doesn't want to get it. Maybe he thinks if he pretends that something else is happening, it'll all go away. A lot of people that I know are increasingly suspecting that Tony Abbott wants to worry about ISIL because if everybody worries about ISIL, then nobody will pay any attention to global warming. The whole thing is a con job. He's flat out selling Australia to the Chinese while he's flat out helping the Americans to annoy the Chinese. It's as if the only way he can cling to the reins of power is to throw violent military conflict type sand in the eyes of the Australian population in the sure and certain knowledge that if he waves the flag and he blows the bugle and he talks about patriotism and nationalism, my country, right or wrong, he's going to get the unquestioned support of everybody who was raised on the Anzac myth, the legend that Australia became a nation when we invaded Turkey and spent 9 months running uphill into machine gun fire and hand grenades and artillery and then run away in the middle of the night and did a moonlight flit, and the fact that we succeeded in pissing off after having 5,500 people get killed there, that's considered a great victory to the point where Abbott's children's generation regularly go to Anzac Cove and they're surprised to find that Australia was actually defeated. They don't know their history, yet they are adamantly, vehemently, demandingly hyper-patriotic. And Abbott apparently does press conferences with 10 Australian flags. The Australia that I grew up in would have laughed that half-wit off the stage if he dared to have 2 Australian flags. There might have been one in the corner of the office of the Prime Minister because, yeah, that's okay, he's allowed to have it. Nothing in Australian politics is so execrable, so poorly regarded as jingoistic, nationalistic, flag-waving half-wits who claim my country, right or wrong, I don't have to think about any of the issues because I will support my country in whatever it does. That's not a good way to operate a life for a human on planet Earth. You have to think about the issues, and if your country's doing the wrong thing, you have to call them on it. That's why I say, fuck Team Australia. I'm in the nation of Australia. I am an Australian. I was born here. I'm not part of any fucking team. I can't be drafted to support you to do something that I think is a stupid fucking idea. I will choose what I do because I think it is the right thing, and I'm quite happy to help in a good project for a good end. And going to war against the Muslim world is not a good project, and it's not a good end. And Tony Abbott, fuck Team Abbottania. Ciao.